50,000 letters. Every single address written out by hand. Because in 1952, Japan, no machine on earth could do it for you. Clerks wrote them. Factory staff stayed late and wrote them. Bank employees wrote them after their own working day. 50,000 envelopes, posted to almost every bicycle shop in the country, from a company that almost none of those shopkeepers had ever heard of. 30,000 wrote back, and 5,000 did something that makes no commercial sense whatsoever. They sent money, in advance, to a stranger, for a product they had never seen, from a factory they could not have found on a map, run by a man who had been bombed out of one business, shaken out of another by an earthquake, and had sold the wreckage of both for scrap. So what was inside those envelopes? Hold that question, because the answer became the largest engine maker on the planet.
Take a seat. This meeting has one item on the agenda: how a broke mechanic in a burned country persuaded 50,000 shopkeepers to fund him. We are beginning in the middle tonight, and I will tell you why. Every telling of this story starts with the ashes, because ruin makes a man sound like destiny. I find that lazy. Plenty of men stood in the rubble of 1946 Japan with clever hands and a good idea. What separates this one is not the fire he survived. It is a decision taken 6 years later in a rented room in ink 50,000 times over. Invention is the cheap half of the job. The expensive half is persuading strangers to hand you money before you have proved anything. Our subject was a genius with metal, and by his own account, a disaster with a balance sheet. Whether he became one of the great industrialists of the century turned on finding someone to do the half he was bad at. So, the envelopes. Let us go and find out what was in them.
Rewind to 1937. Soichiro Honda is 30, the son of a village blacksmith, and he has built a company called Tokai Seiki that makes piston rings for Toyota. It is a real business, and the war eats it. In 1944, an American B-29 destroys his Yamashita plant. Then, in January 1945, the Mikawa earthquake collapses his second factory at Iwata. Bombed, then shaken, inside a few months. He sells the wreckage to Toyota for 450,000 yen and stops. September 1946. He starts again on a burned-out plot in Hamamatsu. A barrack, 16 square meters, one old belt-driven lathe inside, and machine tools standing out in the open air because there is no room under the roof. Over the door, he hangs a signboard far grander than the shed deserves, the Honda Technical Research Institute. Then he finds the engines. Roughly 500 small motors, built during the war to run radio generators for the Imperial Army. Now surplus, now worthless. In a country where petrol is rationed, the trains are wrecked, and a woman carrying rice home from the countryside has to walk. He buys the lot, pulls everyone apart, reworks it, and clamps it to an ordinary bicycle frame. The first one uses a hot water bottle as its fuel tank. Crude, loud, and it sells instantly, because it solves the one problem every person in Japan has that year. It moves you. Then the 500 engines run out. Most men would have gone hunting for another job lot. He decided to build the engine himself. In 1947, the A-Type appears, the first thing Honda ever made from nothing. And in September 1948, with 34 employees, Honda Motor Company is formally born. Here the trouble starts, and it is not the trouble you would expect. The engineering is superb. The problem is everything that happens after the engine works. Honda is, by his own cheerful admission, hopeless at the commercial half. Bored by accounts, uninterested in dealers. He wants to be in the workshop, with his hands black to the wrist, spending money he has not earned yet on machinery he cannot justify yet. In 1949, a quiet, unglamorous man named Takeo Fujisawa joins and takes over the money and the selling. Neither of them knows it, but that is the moment the company becomes possible, because they are sitting on a genuinely good product and a genuinely fatal weakness. Honda has almost no way to reach a customer. No showrooms, no distribution, no advertising budget worth the name. In a country of 100 million people, this brilliant little engine can only be bought by the handful who already know it exists. Fujisawa is about to fix that, with a fountain pen. Remember the envelopes?
Allow me to pause the tape, because this pairing is the most underrated asset in the story. We enjoy the myth of the lone founder Because it is tidy. One man, one vision, one garage. It is very nearly always false. What happened in this shed is that a man who could make anything found a man who could sell anything, and the second man understood the real bottleneck, not the engine, the trust. Nobody in post-war Japan had a shortage of ideas. They had a shortage of anyone willing to believe a stranger. That is a different sort of engineering problem, one you solve with paper rather than steel. And the solution they landed on would be laughed out of any modern marketing department. It is slow, it is manual, it does not scale, and it worked better than anything that has replaced it.
June 1952. Honda launches the Cub F-Type. Not a motorcycle, an engine. Small, white, with a bright red fuel tank. Built to clamp onto the bicycle a customer already owns. 25,000 yen, and any bicycle in Japan becomes a motorbike. Now the distribution problem. There are no Honda dealers, but there are bicycle shops, tens of thousands of them, in every town in the country, run by men who already fix the exact machine this engine bolts onto. So Fujisawa writes to all of them. 50,000 shops. And because no automated mailing exists in 1952, every one of those addresses is written out by hand, by hired clerks, by Honda's own staff, and by employees of the bank. The letter does not open with a specification. It reminds the shopkeeper that it was his own trade, a generation earlier, that first brought the imported bicycle to Japan. His predecessors put a country on wheels once. Would he like to do it again? And to solve the trust problem, one more sheet of paper travels with it. The manager of the Kyobashi branch of Mitsubishi Bank sends his own letter, asking that payments be remitted through his branch. A bank vouching for the stranger. 30,000 shops reply. 5,000 send money before they have seen the product. The network grows towards 15,000 outlets. Honda now has a nationwide sales force and does not own a single shop. The 20th of March, 1954. One of the most reckless documents ever posted on a factory wall. Honda tells his own workers that the company will enter the Isle of Man TT, the most dangerous motorcycle race in the world, run on public roads off the coast of England. I have reached the firm decision to enter the TT races next year, he writes. The future of Honda Motor Co. depends on this, and the burden rests on your shoulders. Then the roof falls in. The new Juno scooter arrives overweight and overheating. The market refuses it, and roughly 450 million yen of imported machine tools come due. On the 20th of April, Fujisawa stands in front of the Saitama factory and tells the staff plainly how bad it is. The company that has just promised to conquer the world's hardest race cannot pay for its own machines. They survive it. In 1959, Honda arrives on the island, taken seriously by nobody, and finishes 6th, 7th, 8th, and 11th, taking the manufacturer's team prize on its first attempt. 2 years later, Honda takes the top 5 places in the 125 class, then does it again in the 250. Not a win, a clean sweep, twice. Underneath the racing sits the machine that pays for all of it, the Super Cub, 1958, small enough to ride in ordinary clothes. Within 5 years, Honda held more than half the American motorcycle market. The Super Cub passed 100 million units in 2017, the best-selling motor vehicle ever built, of any kind, anywhere. Today, Honda builds more than 14 million engines a year, more than any company on Earth. All of it downstream of a hot water bottle, 500 pieces of army scrap, and 50,000 envelopes addressed by hand.
Minutes recorded. Before we adjourn, one question for the room, and do leave your verdict in the comments below. 50,000 handwritten envelopes is an absurd way to build a company. It does not scale. It took an army of tired people working by hand at night to do what software would now do in 9 seconds. And yet it produced something no software has managed to produce. 5,000 strangers who sent their own money to a company they had never heard of on the strength of one letter and one bank manager's word. So I put it to you, when a thing can be done instantly, cheaply, and to everybody, does anyone still receive it? Or was the whole value in the fact that somebody sat down and did it the slow way, 50,000 times, one name at a time? I have my suspicion. I noticed that the letters that changed my own career all arrived in envelopes. Next meeting, a man nobody believed when he said a watch belonged on a wrist, so he sent a young typist across the English Channel wearing one, 10 hours in freezing water. How Rolex made time expensive. Subscribe. Attendance is taken. Minutes recorded. Meeting adjourned.